Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Any questions before I get started? Okay. Log4j is a framework, right? And the advantage of the framework is to log the activities. And the advantage of logging the activities is when you, in case, what I mean I say is, yeah. It's like if you want to debug a program, what you do now? Yeah, what we do is I write a standalone program. Imagine I have 100 lines of code. I have some 100 lines of code. Then this I'm giving a sample. You got line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have like this. You have some 100 lines of code. Now what exactly is, there may be some problem, may not be a problem, right? There may be some problem or there may not be some problem. I want to know, I want to debug. If something gone wrong, I want to debug where exactly the program is going wrong. So normally what you do now is, you add system.out.println, right? You guys add sysos, hello 1. If I want to debug, I'm a beginner, then this is what I do. After every line or after every piece of code, what I'm confident, then I keep writing. Now, if my program is starting after hello 3, then it indicates for me that there is something wrong with the hello line number 4. If my program gets halted, or I get a message as hello 3 and I don't get the message as hello 4, then that indicates for me that there is something wrong with the line number 4. So I go back and modify. So instead of using the sysos, what we do is, we have a logging framework. Instead of using the sysos, we have a logging framework. Now this logging framework, you just create an object. Just create an object like this. Logger, there is some object. It is not only from log4j. Log4j is one of the mechanisms, but this is actually a different one. There is also something called, in Java itself you have a logging framework. In Java itself you have a logging framework. In Java API got some logging framework. Now what you do is, you just keep like this, log.info. You can divide those messages into different categories. Log.info, log.debug. So you have some categories. You can divide those messages into categories. Now the good thing is, you can log to a console, and you can also log to a console, or you can log to a file. But normally in the production you don't see console. Means in the real environment you don't log the messages on the console. What you do is, you log the messages on a file. Now if something goes wrong, on the server and all of a sudden there is an interruption or your application goes down, you go back and see the log file, and in the log file you will be logging the messages. It can be an information message, or it can be a debugging message, or it can be a error message. It can be different categories of errors. So it is very simple. The only thing is you just need to create one XML file. Tutorials.com, and you can take it here actually, log4j, Java, or just give them an, people make things difficult. Yeah. Look at this. It's very simple framework. What you need to do is, you need to configure one XML file or properties file. You create one log4j.properties file, or you can also do log4j.xml file. Then in this XML file, you need to say what kind of messages debug or file, and what kind of appender. Appender in the sense, it has to keep adding the messages. So you're saying file appender. And what should be the pattern you need to write. And these are different levels actually. Debugging, info, warning messages, error messages, fatal messages, all messages, all of them. So you will be keep adding those messages actually to the log file. Why log file? Because you specify it as a file appender. You can also specify it as a console. There are a lot of options available for you. And here pattern is there, no? This pattern is nothing but you can see log formatting, you got log levels, and what are the methods you have, logging methods. As I said, right? You got a debug method, error method, fatal method. So this is what I'm talking about. So you create a class, wherever you want to write this logger, create this object. And using that object you can call the respective methods and you can add the message. But before you write this, what you need to do, you need to create a log4j.properties file or log4j.xml file. And in that properties file and XML file, you're going to specify, in the properties file or XML file, you're going to specify what kind of logger you want to use it and what kind of appender, console appender or file appender. And here you got console appender or file appender. Then you can specify the layout, in which format the messages should be. So do you want a simple pattern layout or HTML layout? So here you have what? Configuration, which is a pattern layout. What kind of pattern it is showing here? See, the only thing you need to do is one properties file, either properties file or XML file, and then after that it's a very simple job. Create an object and just call the methods. And depending on the configuration, whether you configured a file or a console, the messages will be logged to a file or console. If it is a file appender, it will be logged to a file. If it is a console appender, they will be logged to a console. Yeah. Any other questions? We can work it out. It's a very simple thing actually. This tutorial you can use to use this 2 examples on logging framework. Yes.
Hi Shiva. Yeah, I was trying to understand the
Oh, that is,
syntax here which says
just give
log
me a
for.
minute, Ishita. Ishita, just give me a minute. Suman, you can specify the location also, where the file need to be saved. You have this option, file appender, right? Then you'll have some, see, logging in files, and you can look at this here. And you'll have the option to specify the location of the file. Right, reference. And there will be an option here where exactly the file need to be saved. In one of the XML property will be there, XML or properties file. You can specify the address, see, log.out, and this is giving you the address. This $of log will give the application root folder. The application root folder, and this is where you specify the address of the file. And this is the extension you should use, log.out. Yeah, yes, Suman, we can go ahead now.
I was trying to. Arun, this is Ishita.
Yeah, Ishita. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was trying to understand the syntax. Can you do back?
Okay, which
It
syntax
says,
you are talking about?
just the comma, like even in this page right now, it says debug comma file. So.
Oh, this one, right? Oh, this is root logger. See, you're gonna add debugging messages, and you're gonna use file. File, it's a variable actually. Do you see here log4j.appended.file? This file is nothing but what did you use here? You can use any name there. See whatever. See, I selected some text there. File. Instead of file, if you write X, here you will be writing X.
Oh, okay.
Debug is a constant, and whatever you write here, that name you will be using it later. If you see another example, you see something like X. Here also you use file. But there was one where I was using X actually.
So the properties file is not an XML file. Like I've
No,
never seen that
it's
syntax.
an alternate for XML file. You can use anything. You can use either properties file or either XML file.
Okay.
Properties file is alternate to XML.
Okay.
You don't need to use both of them. You have to use either file or either yeah. You have to use either file or XML. Either properties file or XML. See, you can give any name. You can also have database appender also. You see. So it is not only that you can you log the messages to the you can log the messages to a file, not only log the messages to a file and XML, you can also log these messages to a database. So this is what a sample configuration for logging into database. Then you are specifying the URL, driver name, username and all the password and the kind of query to be used.
Okay, no, but my actual question was I was not able to understand this syntax because properties is like it's a different syntax. This I've not seen this before.
This is
Seems like
command name.
Ajax. Is it Ajax?
This is a command line.
Okay.
And this is log4j, the framework what you are using. And it got some attributes. Everything got a significance. So you are saying that I am gonna log debug messages, and this is a name. You can choose any name, and that name you're gonna use down. So what are we doing here? log4j.appender.db. This is the appender you created. And you are saying what kind of appender DB is? DB is a JDBC appender.
Okay.
Now DB is a JDBC appender. So which database you gonna use? The URL and the driver name.
Okay.
The username and the password. So this is not syntax. These are all attributes of log4j.
Okay. Okay.
And this is the appender which you created, DB. So log4j framework, appender is the attribute, DB is the appender which you created in the first line, and you are assigning the values to it. Now you are saying that DB is of type JDBC appender. So, but if I want to log messages to the database, then I should tell the location of the database, the driver, the username and the password, and the kind of query I need to use to insert the log messages, and it's a pattern layout. So HTML layout in the sense the file will have HTML tags along with the error messages.
Okay. Okay.
So you have a pattern layout means only you will see messages in one particular format. So the default format also. Okay. So same thing, if you are not comfortable with the properties file, instead of log4j.properties, you can use log4j.xml.
Okay.
XML configuration equivalent to properties. So what do you have? Log4j.configuration as the rootmost. Then you are creating an appender. Right. And what level? Debug. Where you are appending to the DB. What is DB? It's a JDBC appender. So here you are creating an appender, and that appender you are saying that I am going to log debug messages into this DB. But this DB is of what type? JDBC appender type. So every attribute got some significance. When you start looking at these examples, I think probably in the architecture and configuration, it will be helping you what is the significance of each. See, these are the different debugging levels, appenders. Right. So it is discussing what is the significance of layout, level, threshold, filter, the attribute significance. So you have many different appenders here. Console appender, file appender, JDBC appender, and we have something called rolling file appender. Rolling file appender in the sense, you have a file, for the file you will be specifying the size, maybe 5 MB or 10 MB of the file size. Once you reach that 10 MB, what it is supposed to do, that is specified with the help of rolling file appender. Create a new file. So with the help of rolling file appender, you have the luxury or you have the feasibility. Yeah, it's purely for debugging purpose, right? And tracking logging the messages. It's not only debugging. Suppose if you want to know when this person has logged in and what all the events he performed. So it's purely, it's all about, log4j. I cannot say it as it is only for logging. It is used to log messages. It is used to log messages. So the messages can be debugging message, or it can be information messages, or it can be event messages. On logging, I want to just log a message that so and so user has logged at so and so time. Normally you see, right, when it comes to some government applications, he will tell you that, hey, you logged on so and so time, And when you log in next time, he will also tell you your last login was so and so day. Right? So these are not debugging messages, right? So still you are storing into databases. But when are you storing into database? Whenever you log in. So on event, you are logging some messages. So log4j is not only meant for debugging, it is used to log messages, and you have log messages to different options. You can log into a database, you are logging to a file, or you are logging to a console. And it's very simple syntax actually. Right, you just need to know attributes, and you just need to know how to configure an XML file. Yeah. Any other question? Syntax is very simple. The only thing is, look at this. Root logger. What is the logger name? X. So now X is of what type of logger? File appender. What layout it's going to use? Pattern layout. You got %m, %n. These are the patterns, the messages actually. So there is a significance for m, there is a significance for n. You can just look at that. The messages will be printed actually. Yeah. Any other question with respect to this? Version control is something, I cannot demonstrate that. Actually, why do we need this version control? In the sense, you are a group of 5 people in a team. You are onto a project. You are onto a project, and you are a team of 5. You are onto a project, and you are a team of 5 people. Okay. Now, you don't work one after the another. You all work simultaneously. You don't work one after the other. You all work simultaneously. Then at the end of the day, all 5 people accomplish 5 tasks. But if you keep in your local machine, is it of any use? It is of no use, right? It is of no use. So what you do? You need to update that code into a common location. All the 5 people need to update the code into a common location. That is called as check-in. The process is called as check-in. You check in the code. And next day morning, you don't want to do something which somebody has already did. You don't want to do something which somebody has already did. But how do you know that he has completed it or not? Or is this module is already finished or not? Or there is a dependency. I can continue today's work only if somebody has completed the last day work. Or I can say, yeah, I can design a UI if backend logic is already implemented. So what I need to do? I need to check out the code. Next day, I need to check out the code. Then what happens? Last day, all the people have check in the code, right? Before leaving to go, they check in the code. Next day when they reach office, the first job is to check out the code. And after checking out the code, they get all the implementations done by other fellow people. Then he can see the status of the application, to what extent it progressed. And accordingly, he can find a work he can start working on. So what is this version control in the sense is, so your project is of 10 days. Till 5th day everything went fine. Then day 6 you made some changes. Day 7 you made some changes. On day 8 you realized that whatever the changes you made till day 6 and day 7, that is of no use. or maybe something wrong with it. But you want to work on day 5 code. You want to work on day 5 code. I repeat it. There is a 10 days project and all went well till 5th day. Then 6th day, 7th day something wrong or something messed up with the code. You want to go back and have the day 5th code. Then with the help of version control, actually it is a tool through which you check the code at one place. It is a common location. We call it as a repository. Into the repository you store the code, and from the repository you get the code. So since you have a problem with the 6th one and the day 6 and day 7, you don't want to work on day 6 code and day 7 code. You want to go back and have the code which is on day 5. So you can simply go and get the code of day 5 and you can keep working on the day 5 code. So that's the reason we call it as a version controlling. Means you are controlling the code versioning action. So there is actually something called SVN, we call it as. There are a lot of version controlling available nowadays. SVN is one of them. And we have GitHub, GitHub, SVN Tortoise. And we have GitHub, right? These are the two things. This is to cloud. GitHub is to cloud. SVN Tortoise is physical machines is needed. You need to have your physical storage location. GitHub is you can have your physical location on the cloud, not on your local servers. Yeah. Any other question? Okay. If all good, then I'll get started with the web services. Alright, so it's not a very complicated task. It's a very simple one, right? And I keep it very simple too. So what exactly the web services? Would you like to take a guess, any one of you? What do you mean by web services? I think you might have heard of this. It's not that okay, you are completely unaware of. What do you mean by a web service? Okay. So let me define what is web service. So we develop web applications. After you guys learn servlets, JSP or Ajax or Spring MVC, right? So we develop web applications. Who consumes web applications? Who consumes web applications? Web applications are consumed by humans, or you can say end customers, end users. Like you have a lot of Flipkart, Amazon. So who consumes this Flipkart and Amazon? The end user, the customer. Now web services, as of now, web services are not meant for human consumption. They are consumed by code, that is other applications. That is, they are consumed by code, that is other applications. Now I have a very quick question. I think everybody uses smartphone here, right? And in your smartphone it shows the climate. It shows your today's temperature. right? So you have an app in every smartphone, right? Climate conditions of a region. Now my question is, how your smartphone is able to determine what is the maximum temperature and what is the minimum temperature of your particular city? Your smartphone is not your climate detector, right? So what exactly is the weather forecast team, wherever they are seated, they publish the weather forecasting publish a web service which gives info about climate of every city. So what happens? Your smartphone when connected to internet, right, invokes a method or invokes a web service. There's a smartphone means the application, the app in smartphone. The app in smartphone when connected to the internet invokes a web service, right, and gets the climate information or gets the climate condition. So what is web service? Web service is a piece of code, or you can say web service is a method which is published by some team. Here weather forecast team published a web service. Where they publish a web service? They publish web service in UDDI, Universal Description Discovery Language. Oh, sorry. Discovery integration or something is there. Right. Integration. So what happens is the weather forecasting publish a web service in UDDI about climate of every city, and what your app will do, your app will talk to the app in smartphone when connected to the internet. It invokes a web service and gets a climate condition for you. Means the person who is developing an app, the weather forecast app, he has no idea how the climate conditions will be evaluated. What he knows is, he knows only to call a web service, a piece of code which is available, or piece of code which is published, and through that you will be getting the climate conditions. Now what is our objective? Now our objective is to how to consume web service, then how to publish web service. This is our agenda now. How do we consume the web service and how do we publish the web service? So this is what we're going to learn, and these web services are of two types. We got it as SOAP, SOAP and REST. Simple to use and used in enterprise applications. Now these are simple to use, right? Enterprise and large scale applications. These are very simple. The rest are very simple to use. Now we have for SOAP we have a JAX WS. For REST you have a JAX RS, and this is completely XML based. So, and this can be XML as well as JSON, because JSON as well as XML are both language neutral or platform neutral. Because JSON is a JavaScript object, and JavaScript object can be consumed by Java applications, also by .NET applications, or PHP applications, or Python application. Any application can consume this JavaScript object, JSON. XML also the same. The purpose of XML is it's a platform neutral. Right. But here REST can be done achieved with the help of JAX REST, and it is XML as well as JSON based, whereas SOAP is only XML based. Now, how this communication happens? How this communication happens? So normally, what exactly happens is you have a class, and for every class you create an interface. Class implements interface. Now the thing is, what is loose coupling in the sense? There is an interface and somebody is implemented that interface. Now when I want to call it, I don't need implementation. I just need an interface. Guys, observe, this is very important. At interface I equal to, you won't have a class to create object. You don't have a class to create object. So what we do is, we look up, right? We look up and get the object, and on that you call the method. I hope you guys are catching it up. Normally what happens is, everybody don't have the implementations. So every client will not have an implementation, and client have an only idea about the interface. The best example for this is your JDBC. In what happens in JDBC, you see all interfaces only. Connection, interface, statement, interface, prepaid statement, interface, callable statement, interface. Most of them are interfaces. Who implemented? The database vendors has implemented. Right? Here also, in the client server architecture, also, server will have the interface and implementation class. Whereas client will not have the implementation. Client only got interface. What client will do is, client will look up the server. Client will look up the server. This client will look up the server and get the implementation object, and you store it into an interface, because interface can store the address of the children, and you call the methods. Okay. Now, how the lookup happens, that is a different scenario, right? How the lookup happens, there are a lot of mechanisms for looking up. Lookup can be accomplished using RMI, remote method invocation, or JNDI. RMI is what? When you make your own server, I mean you have 5 computers and you treat one of the computer as a server, then you can use RMI to connect to it. When did you use JNDI? If you use application servers, like you got a WebLogic, WebSphere, JBoss, and in the application servers you keep the code. In the application servers you keep the code, then you configure the object there, and you can look it up using JNDI. JNDI can be used to look up the objects from the application servers. You get the object and call the methods. Now the thing is here, you have an application server. Now this application server got some business logic. Now this application server got some business logic. Now you can have console client, you can have a console client, you can have a web client. Now this console client can look up. This console client can look up. Here we go. You have one application server. This is an application server. Okay. You got application server. You got another application server. Now in this application server, you will have containers. Application server got containers. This is your EJB container. And the first one is your servlet container. Or we call it as a web container. Now you got the clients. This is your browser. Now what will you do? You want to invoke some logic, but your browser cannot invoke the logic directly. Your browser will talk to the web container, and your web container will talk to the EJB container. So your web container will do the lookup. Web container will do the lookup on the EJB container, get the object, and invoke the methods and give the response back to the browser. If it is a desktop client, desktop client or Windows client or console client, window client. Window client is graphical user interface. Now what happens in this case is, this fellow will directly look up on the EJB container, but this fellow should know the IP address. This fellow should know the IP address where this EJB container is. Then he will be able to look up and get the object and invoke the methods. So this console or window, what we will have is, this guy will have an interface. And into that interface reference, he calls the method lookup, and he pass address where the server is, and he pass the object name, and that's it. He gets the object and he calls the method. I hope you understood. Right? This is like you are calling the method which is not on your computer. This is also a remote method invocation only. But since it's a remote method and it's an application server, you cannot directly look it up. You have to use some mechanism called JNDI. How will I look up? I will look up to a mechanism called JNDI. I look up to a mechanism called JNDI. And using the JNDI lookup, I can look the object, look up at the object, get the object, and invoke the method. Look up at the object, get the object, and invoke the method. Now what next? Alright, this is fine. This is again, you are looking up at the object. But my next concern is, I have a client who talks to this application server. I had both types of clients. I have a browser client. I also have a console client. I have both browser. I also have a console client. Now my next worry is, it will have a both web container as well as a EJB container. I got a web container. I got a EJB container. This is your web container. Now this is my EJB container. Now what I want to do is, the browser will connect to the web container, but I want my web container to talk to the EJB container of another application. Right, EJB container of another application. To what extent it is possible? Or I want this client to talk to this EJB container. Right. To what extent this is possible? So it will be possible when you have the interface. It will be possible. But how will the interface will be available? So what I need to do is, I need to pack those interface in the form of a jar file, and I need to give it to this other clients. So here I hope you understood. I want to consume the code which is in another application server. One application server wants to consume the code which belongs to another application server. Right? So as long as it is Java, I can achieve it. Means the first application server got some code that is of Java. The second application server also got some code that is also of Java. So I can accomplish it because I can share a jar file. Of the of this EJB container with another people, and they will be able to do it. But but they will be able to do it. But fine. But if this EJB container is connecting to a database, and there is a database configured. But if you give a jar file, to the another application server, will they be able to talk to the same database? There may be a concern, right? It may not be possible. Suppose the first application server has a method called getProducts. They get the products from their database. You have another application server which talks to another database. Now, what is the advantage? What is the significance? There is no significance if I call getProducts here, right? Because getProducts get the products from this database. But here you also have a getProducts, but that is eating your database. There is no point in it. So this is one problem. Other problem is, the first application is of Java, the second application is of .NET. The first application is of Java, the second application is of .NET, but do they still share the data with each other? Do they still share the data with each other? Do they still share the data with each other? what is the, if I am returning a Java object, will your .NET able to receive it? So when your applications are of two different types or applications are of two different platforms, then you cannot exchange the data between them. That is one thing. Next thing is, if you put it in the EJB container, then only the people who know the address of this particular EJB container or to whom you give the permissions to access the EJB container, only they will be able to consume it, not everybody else. So you need to make your business logic as a web service. You need to make your business logic as a web service, and there should be a mechanism to reach the web service, and that is called service endpoint. So now let's see what exactly I want to do is, there is a web service now. Now I want this web service to be consumed by all the people. So where did you publish this web service? As I said earlier, you publish the web service in UDDI. This is your UDDI. It's like a location where you publish it. In the UDDI you have a web service. How one can consume this web service? So you have other applications. Maybe a web application, maybe a console application. It can be any application. It can be a web app, or it can be a desktop app or console app. They cannot directly talk to web service. They cannot directly talk to the web service. What they need to have it is, they need to have SEI on them. They need to have SEI on them. They need to have SEI on them. What is SEI? I'll tell you. Service endpoint. Service endpoint interface. SEI stands for Service Endpoint Interface. Now, how do you get this service endpoint? Will you go and develop it? No. In between your web service and the application, there lies a WSDL. There lies a WSDL and web service description language. To this web service, every web service will have a WSDL, web service description language. And through this WSDL, we can generate these service endpoints. Through this WSDL, we can get those service endpoints. And what happens? Your application, with the help of service endpoints, that is, how do you get the service endpoint? With the help of this WSDL. Actually, it's XML file. And they invoke here web service. They invoke the web service. Now this WSDL, alright. Now here the web service may be written in any language. The applications can be of any languages. The web services and application can be of any languages. So let's quickly look at some examples. And I'll take one example which is available on the internet. I mean, not the code example. There is a web service available on the internet, right? Webservicex.net. So you have some free web services here. Web services is what? It's a piece of code which is available on the internet for consumption. What is web service? It's a piece of code which is available on the internet for consumption. You don't need to bother about what programming language they use to develop it. You don't need to bother what programming language they use to develop it. You have a currency converter. I have no clue what programming language they used to write the currency converter. Then I am searching for something called GeoIP. Yeah. See, it is a web service. It will allow you to look up the country name by IP address. And if you give the IP address, it will tell you to which country it belongs to. So this is a web service. Somebody has developed it and he published it. But I want to consume it. If you want to consume, you need to read this WSDL file. And look at it. I am just taking this WSDL file. So what is a web service? GeoIP service. And to this web service there is a description file, and the description file is in XML format. And they followed SOAP architecture, Simple Object Access Protocol architecture. Now this is a XML file. Slowly you will be familiar with it. You get familiar with this. Now with the help of this XML file, you will have an idea what method to be called and what you get the output as. Yeah. So what is a service? It's a GeoIP service. Right? GeoIP service. And what method we need to call, that you will come to know slowly. So what do you have now? Somebody has already published a web service, and for that corresponding web service there is a WSDL file. Now what is your job? My job is to consume the web service. How will I consume the web service? So if you want to consume the web service, the first thing you need to do is you have to use JDK 1.6 and above. You have to use JDK 1.6 and above. Oh, I have JDK 1.7, that's great. Now in the JDK 1.7 you have a bin folder, and in that bin folder you have something called WS import, web service import. Now what you need to do is, it's very simple thing. Open the command prompt, alright, and just check whether Java is set or not. Yes, the path is set. You just need to do WS import -key, right, and you got your WSDL address. Get the WSDL address, put it here, paste, enter. Okay, let me set the path then again. It's already there. Set path equals to paste, it is parsing that XML file, yeah, generating and compiling the code. C drive. In the C drive, if I go, I see a folder called net. In that I see a folder called web service X. Then I see this all .class and .java files. I'll pick up only .java, not .class. So let me arrange it, list it, sort by type. Then I pick all those Java files. Then I created a package. Then I pasted them. Then you can write your client program now. You are creating a GeoIP service object, and GeoIP service is here. Why GeoIP service object? Because according to the WSDL, what is the service name? GeoIP service. So you create an object. Then on that object, you are calling something called SOAP method. GeoIP service. The port is there, WSDL port. GeoIP service SOAP, that is the method. So you are calling that method. And that will give you an object of SOAP type. Now on that object, you are calling a method called GeoIP and you are passing some IP address. And that IP address is not given as a, it will not give you the country name. It will give you in the form of an object. Now on that object you can call the method country name, that will give you the country name. It takes a bit time for this. Yeah, see, this is India. Actually this is my IP address. I just go, there is an online tool called what is my IP. See, my IP is 113.193.126.90. I am in India. So here we go. See, you have not written any program to check the country name basing on the IP address. Somebody has already written that program and he published it, and if he published what? People should be able to consume it. If people want to consume it, then people need to be aware of WSDL. What is WSDL? WSDL is nothing but an XML file, right? And that XML file also is available. Then with the help of that XML file and a command called WS import, you generate the, whatever you generated, right? That is called as service endpoint. Whatever you generated, that is called as service endpoint. Now with the help of this service endpoint, you will be able to invoke the methods. Now what is the significance of this service endpoint is, the web service which is developed, right, which is already existing, we don't know which programming language they use. It may be a Java programming language, or it may be a C# programming language, or it can be any programming language. I have no clue about it. But with the help of the WSDL, they represented all the information. And WSDL is in what? XML file. XML is platform neutral. Using this platform neutral, they specified what should be the method name, what should be the class name, or what should be the argument names, and what should be the return type. Everything is specified with the help of XML. Now there is a command called WS import through which I converted that XML into Java programs. With the help of WS import, I converted that XML to Java programs, and this Java program takes care of everything. But it will help you to call the method, and it will help you to call the method and conversions, because that may be, we specified all the data types in XML. So this conversion, everything is taken care by your service endpoint. Guys, any questions so far, or is it clear? So far I discussed how do we consume a web service, and web service is already provided by somebody. Any questions, or is it simple? Okay. I can reiterate it. Okay. So what is web service? Difference between the web service and web application. Web application is consumed by human, whereas web service is consumed by another application. So web service is a piece of code which is published on the internet with UDDI registry. There are so many other things where you can register it. UDDI is one of them. So you registered your web services with UDDI, and if you want to register, you should also supply a WSDL file. You created a web service and you want people across the globe to consume it, then for every UDDI there should be a corresponding WSDL file available. WSDL is nothing but an XML file, and they use the SOAP architecture, Simple Object Access Protocol, to specify it. Then what I do, I want to consume the web service. Simple. You need to get that visual. You need to get the visual address, and with the help of WS input command, keep the source files. Don't delete it. If you don't use keep, it will only keep the .class files. If you don't use keep option, it will only generate the .class files. It will only keep the .class files and delete the .java files. But I don't want to delete the .java files, so I use the command option -keep. Then what happens? It will generate a directory structure. Go get the files out of it, and these files are called as service endpoint interface, and through which we will be consuming the web service. You add it to your application. I did. Then I created a separate program called Finder with the main method. Then with the help of the WSDL, I found that the service name is GeoIP service. Then I created an object. Then on the object I called a method called which is specified as code, WSDL code. Then I got that SOAP object. Then on the SOAP object I call the method, because in this I have a method called get country name. Get GeoIP, the method. So I just call the method and that gives me a GeoIP object, because when I see this I understand that it returns GeoIP. Then whatever the method you want to call, then on that you can say country name. So it is very easy to consume a web service. It's just like using an API. Now, since you have no questions, what I do is I would like to demonstrate how do we publish a web service. How do we publish a web service? I'll be creating my own web service, and I would also consume it. So I have an interface and I have an implementation. Look at this. You don't need any extra jar files for this. JDK 1.6 is good enough. So hello world is my interface, and it's of document style, that is it's going to use XML based. What is the method? Hello world as a string. So I have an interface, I have a method, and this method I am declaring it as @web method. That is, it's a web service. So when you use the annotation @web method, that indicates that it's going to be a web service. So this interface is a web service, and the kind of binding is SOAP binding. I'm using JAX WSN. Now for this interface there is also an implementation class which I provided. You pass a string argument and that will be the name. So what do you have? You have an interface and you have an implementation. Now you want to publish it as a web service. So if you want to publish it as a web service, the first thing you need to do is, you need to do this part. Endpoint dot publish. What are you publishing? The object hello world. See, you developed an interface, you developed a class, implementation class, and you are publishing it. So this is the address where you are registering it. http://localhost 999 ws hello. So after running this program, take this address. Let me run this hello world publisher program. So it's not a server, it's a simple program. right? Now what I do, just go there, and this is the address where you get the visual. See, what is your message name? Get hello world as a string. Get hello world as a string. Right? Service name, hello world IMPL service, port number. So what happened is, you have an interface, you have an implementation, you published it. When you publish, you register some address, and that is the address where you find the WSDL. Now what next? You have the WSDL now. Again do the same stuff. WS import -key, pass this address. When you pass the address, then what it will do? Again it will create those folders. See, because what is my practice structure? com.company name.project name.ws. Then when I do the WS import, it will give me some files. Get hello world as string, get hello world string as response, hello world IMPL service. Then I just copy those files here. These are not developed by me, they are generated by WS import. There is a command called WS import. And then you can consume it. And then you can consume it. You can consume it happily. Consumption is easy. IMPL service object, then you call port method. When you get the object, then you call the respective method. See how simple it is to publish and consume. What did I do for publishing? I have an interface, I have an implementation. Then there is a API called endpoint. In that there is a publish method. Give the address and object. It gets published. And from this address you can get the WSDL. WS import -keep, and the address will give you the service endpoint programs. Put those service endpoint programs and consume in a client. It's very, very simple, publishing a web service and consuming it. And when it comes to SOAP, the default response type is XML only. Default response type is XML. Yeah. Any questions so far, or is it simple? Yes.
Arun, my computer just hung up when you were showing it. Can you just show me what happens when after you publish the address? Like how do you go to the address to get the WSDL?
Okay. So first thing is, you need to create an interface and implement it. Right. I have an interface. I added some annotations. Then I created a class implementing the interface. Now after you have interface and implementation class, now your job is to publish it. For publishing, what I did, I have written a piece of code with the main method. In that there is an API called endpoint. Then using that endpoint, you are calling a publish method to publish the web service. And this is the address you are specifying. So what is this indicates that if you want to know the WSDL, this is the address you need to go. So just take this address, to this address add a parameter as a WSDL. That was the address given by me. Question mark WSDL. So you get a WSDL. So you publish the web service, and for the corresponding web service you also have a WSDL. Now I want to consume it. What is the procedure for consuming? Procedure for consuming is WS import -key to keep the source files and just put the address. And when you do this, It will generate the service endpoint interface for you. It will generate the service endpoint interface for you. And that is what here. It is already there. What do you need to do? You already know Hello World is an interface. Now you have classes. Hello World IMPL service, which is auto generated. Get Hello World as a string, your method name and your method response. Take these three files, add it to your client application, and in the client application create the object for service, call the method code, which will give you an object, and on the object you call the method.
Thank you.
You can give any address. Now actually addresses are Suman. Okay, just give me a minute.
Yes.
If you see, address is something whatever. This is my local address, right? If you see carefully here, what is this address? This is my local address. If you want people across the globe to use it, if you want people across the globe to use this address, then you cannot, right? Localhost cannot be used by the people outside. Only within the machine you can access this one. But if you want somebody across the globe to be accessing, this is not possible. So you will have some UDDI registry access, right? You need to register this web service with the UDDI registry, and UDDI is not free. It's a paid one. UDDI is not free.
What this WS is? You know, this
I'm sorry?
WS.
Oh, that is the address. You can give any address. This one you are talking about?
Yeah.
It can be any URL pattern. The URL pattern is your choice.
Like when we do this simple project, it was like when you run as Tomcat server, that's something it was like this time.
Can you come again?
Actually, when we do the simple projects like using Tomcat, when we run as Tomcat server, some HTTP address comes like this. So it was like localhost and HTTP port and then slash the
Localhost is your computer.
Yeah.
Localhost is your computer, but normally this is because localhost we are using it because you install Tomcat on your machine itself. Now in case if your Tomcat is some other machine, if you install Tomcat on some other machine, then what will you do? You need to take, instead of localhost, you need to pass IP address. Instead of localhost, you need to pass IP address. So this can be any address, a address which is existing. Now why I am using localhost? Because I am not publishing this for the entire world. I am only publishing for myself. I am publishing this web service only for myself, only for my computer, and only I can consume it. If I want my web service to be consumed across the globe, then this is what it should be like, as I showed you earlier, right? Webservices.net. So they have this place. On this place, they publish it a web service. This is the address they have. Where is the WSDL available? The WSDL is available on www.webservicex.net. So this is the address, they have it. And after this complete address, now this address includes both the address plus port number. Then after that port number, what is this now? This is something a URL pattern. And then what is the URL pattern I am using? This is the URL pattern I am using, ws/hello. Did I answer your question, Suman, or was it something else?
Actually, I'm just confused. Is the WS your project name or?
WS is not my project name. It's a URL pattern. ws/hello is my URL pattern. it is not a project name. See, if you see my project name is what? Web service document, right?
It's different.
And that way it is not a standalone application. It's not a web application. It's a standalone application. So WS is not. See, this is actually, you will understand this because this is something how you pass multi URL patterns. If you remember in the Spring Framework, what did I used to do? /user/register, right? Whereas user was not my application name. User was a URL pattern followed by another word. So this is completely a URL pattern only. It is not a project name. This is completely a URL pattern. WS/hello is a URL pattern.
So if we open this URL, where it directs us?
I'm sorry?
If you open this URL, where it goes?
It is showing a result, right? See, I picked up this. See, what is this? This is the IP address, no?
Yes.
Right? Instead of IP address, he is using the website name. Do you see any project name here?
No.
You have a URL again directly. And when you open this, what is happening? It's directly giving you what? It's giving you the WSDL file. Right? It is giving you the WSDL file. So in the same way, whatever this address I am using, when you hit that address, that will give you a WSDL file only. That's what happened here. It gives me what? WSDL file.
Okay.
And when I use WS import command, the WSDL and followed by the WSDL file, it will generate the endpoint interface in my program, Java programming language. See, this web service can be in any programming language, but the service endpoint interface is there, right? The service endpoint interface that is developed in Java because this WS import is a Java command. I'm a Java developer, and how do I want the web endpoint interface to be? I want my endpoint interface to be in Java. So when I say WS import -keep then WSDL, it gives me the file and the service endpoint interface in Java. So these are all my service endpoint interface programs. These are auto-generated. I just added to my client so that I can consume them. Yeah. Any other question or is it clear?
It's clear. Thank you.
Alright. Mister, you have a question? Okay. Yeah, Dana. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
My first question is for our web servers, the WSDL is auto-generated.
I didn't get you. Can you come again with the question?
For our own web servers, the WSDL is auto-generated because you didn't create any WSDL, right? You just give the endpoint.
That is what generating the WSDL. It is not auto-generated. Yeah, it is auto-generated. I'm not physically writing the WSDL file.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not physically writing the physical file because if you think if a man physically writes this XML, do you think he will be writing it accurately? He makes mistakes, right? So that's the reason I'm using a tool or I'm using an API to generate it. And the API is endpoint. With the help of this endpoint, I have a mechanism which will generate the WSDL. Because see, when you are calling this publish method, it is publishing it. That is, it is also generating the XML file for you.
Okay.
Your second argument is what? Implementation object. So basing on that, your implementation object, it was able to generate the WSDL.
Okay.
So actually, in the existing in the initial days, this WSDL was manually written. In the initial days of web services, WSDL was manually written. But later on, we have an API. With the help of this API, you just need to invoke a method called publish that will automatically generate a WSDL for you.
Okay. Okay. And one more question. If we created the web service locally for the local machine, still we can use for the, if we have created the web service in Java, still we can create for the .NET also. The
No.
local.
See,
Okay.
there's one thing. Web services can be developed in any programming language. So let me give this example. I showed you this, right? Do you know which programming language was used to develop this GeoIP service?
Yeah.
No, you didn't get my question. Here there are some, do you see, there are some web services available here, right? You have a USA weather forecast, you have a sunset rise service, you have a GeoIP service. Do you know what is the programming language used to develop these web services?
We don't know.
You have no idea, right? But who want to consume these web services? I want to consume it, right? I want to consume, but who am I? I'm a Java developer, right? Being a Java developer, I want to consume the web services. When I want to consume the web service, I don't need to worry web services were developed using which programming language. I'm least bothered about what programming language was used to develop the web service. What I do is...
No, Arun, my question is, if we are creating the web service, if just you created the hello web service, no, from the local machine, I'm asking that web service can be used for you in the .NET. If you have some other .NET program in your local machine, still you can use that web service in your .NET programs?
You are absolutely right. Yes, we can use it.
Okay.
Because for the .NET program, what I do is, I take this WSDL. You saw the WSDL file, right?
Okay.
I'll pick up the WSDL file, and in the .NET, the way you have a WS import as a command, right? Now this command is from Java. For .NET, there will be another command.
Yeah, that's my question. So still, if you created locally, but we can interchange in the platform, we can do that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know what command they use to generate the service endpoint interface using WSDL. For Java, I know they use command called WS import, and they use the WSDL address to generate the service endpoint interface. And using that service endpoint interface, I can consume the web service.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Arun. Thank you.
So this is what all about your SOAP web services. Now we will see RESTful web service. Okay. Now this RESTful web services, let me switch on to another workspace. So the next one is your RESTful web services. Now this RESTful web services, they can be XML based or well as JSON based. As I said earlier, there can be XML based or JSON based. So I'll show this example. See, I have one application here. Just a minute. Okay, here we go. I have an application. Oh, REST is representational state transfer web services. REST stands for representational state transfer web services. Now what I have is, you're going to see what is the difference between them. I have a one-stop for all web application. Now this web application consumes the services from DHL, consumes the web services from HDFC Bank. It also consumes the web services from Whirlpool. So what is happening is this one stop for all application will get the products from Whirlpool, and if customer want to purchase the order, purchase the product, it will check whether the shipping is available on the date or not, and customer will be able to pay with the help of this. So what is happening is customer is not navigating across all the 4 applications. For the customer, what is the end application? The customer is consuming one stop for all. Means one stop for all is a web application. One stop for all is a web application, and it is a human consumption. One stop for all is a web application, and it is a human consumption. One stop for all is a web application, and it is a human consumption. It's a human consumption, right? Now what is happening? But this one stop for all, it is not the manufacturer of the products. Whirlpool is the manufacturer of the products. Whirlpool is the manufacturer of the products, and this one stop for all consumes the products or get the products from Whirlpool. So let's see what Whirlpool is doing here. This Whirlpool is declaring an interface, and in the interface it is giving some web methods. Place order, get all products, get file in JPEG format. Some methods are there. Get file in JPEG format. So if you see here, you have some methods here, right? You have some methods here. You got place order, get all products, get file in JPEG format. You got some methods, and for this method, you see the kind of request get, you know HTTP, right? Do get method, do post method. So get URL pattern. Look at this URL pattern. The first one is URL. Do you see something in flower brackets? They are the arguments, or they are the inputs. So when somebody is using this URL, he is expected to pass 3 arguments. 1, 2, 3. Similarly for the other methods. Now these methods are implemented. The thing is, here you don't need to publish, it will be automatically taken care of. You don't need to say endpoint.publish here. It is automatically taken care of. So in RESTful web services, you won't be using the WSDL. You won't be using the WSDL. Now this is what your Whirlpool. Similarly, other publications also, DHL also published something. Get path produces. This is very, very important. What is the output? Text or HTML. If you might have observed the previous one, the outputs. One is text or HTML, application or XML, image or JPEG. Here also. So it is up to you, whatever the response type you want, text, HTML, or see, application JSON, and all the parameters. Now what I will be doing is simple. This is one stop for all. I have a home.html file, and here I just mentioned everything here. I'm using Ajax call to make a web services call. $.Ajax get manufacturer. So this get manufacturer is not a web service address. Get manufacturer is the controller in my application. It's a controller in my application. Now, what is my controller in my application doing? Okay, this is not my controller in my application. Then you are invoking a method called getAllManufacturers in a DAO. And you get all the manufacturers. So this is fine. This is the local method. It's not a web service one. Let's take another. Get products from all manufacturers. Here we go. I want you guys to focus on this part. Look, you know that the other application is running on what? 50-50, right? There are totally 4 applications. Every application will run on one server. So you are specifying the address. Actually, this is called HTTP client. This is called HTTP client. You need to download this. Now, using this HTTP client, what are you doing? You are just saying here HTTP client, then you are creating an HTTP request object, and you are saying header. What you're going to accept? You're going to accept the return type as XML, and you just say execute. So this is consuming the web service. This is consuming the web service, and you just send the response in the form of what? JSON. See, what is happening is you consume, you get the output as XML. Look, if you see, what is this? Get products from all manufacturers, right? In the HTML, get products from all manufacturers, what is the return type expected? JSON. But get all products from all manufacturers is making a web service call. And it is making a web service call, and when on web service, what it is getting? XML. So what I am doing is that XML data I am converting into JSON. That XML data I am converting into JSON. This XML data, whatever I am getting, I am converting into JSON, and that JSON I am printing it. So your Ajax call consumes, your Ajax is calling a controller, and Ajax call consumes JSON data. But within the controller, you are calling a web service, and what is your web service returning? Your web service is returning an XML file, and that XML data you converted into JSON. So here you said application/XML. This is your web service. Your web service is returning what? XML. And this is how you make a web service call. Similarly, there are other things. Get byte types. Now again you are making a web service call, and this time your web service is giving what? It is giving you a string only. That is your JSON. So it is very RESTful web services are easier in comparison to your SOAP, because the SOAP we need to publish it and we need to create a service endpoint interface to consume it. But if you look at this, it's so simple to consume. You don't need to get any. You don't need to have any service endpoint interface. You don't need to have any service endpoint interface. You just do this. Make a request, execute it, and have the response ready. Consumption is very easier and RESTful. Whereas consumption in SOAP web services is like you need to create a service endpoint and then consume it. But here in RESTful web services, it is very easy to consume. Just call the address and get the response. And when it comes to publishing, I already demonstrated. So easy to publish. It is a GET request. This is the path, and what it is the response it generates. It generates a text or HTML response, or you can say application or JSON response. Yeah. Any questions on this part? It's all about adding annotations. There is nothing beyond. Actually, it's a big application which I did for. It's a very big application actually. So it is consuming the web services from 3 different applications. But of course, the 3 different applications are Java-based applications only. And yeah, and you guys have any questions or no? They're all good. Okay, if you guys have no questions, and then I think I'm done with the content for the content for the day, and I'm also done with the course. Right, this was the last topic, web services. If you have any questions, okay, you can drop me an email and I try to respond as quickly as possible. Right, the way you had few questions today, like what is log gateway and what is version control. Struts is not a part of a curriculum because we discussed one Spring framework, and I think that will be good enough. And you can just look at any of the tutorials, because one framework was something which was needed, and we discussed Spring framework. It's more or less MVC framework for Struts also. In the place of dispatcher servlet, they use action servlet. There will be no difference. I'll just show you one example. First tutorial. Struts, yeah. No, because it looks like a repeated class. There will be no difference between the Spring and the Struts. There is a small difference. To take any example, let's take this hello world example. Yeah. Dynamic web project, we need to add the jar files. The difference comes here. Let's see the XML file. Yeah. This guy configures action servlet instead of dispatcher servlet. And we say that the dispatcher servlet depends on XML file, right? Dispatcher servlet.xml. This action servlet depends on struts-config.xml. And there you have these. Here you have an action mapping and action tag, URL pattern and the respective class. There we call them as a controllers. Here we call them as actions. There we call them as a controllers. Here we call them as actions. There you will have a view resolver. Here you directly write it. If it is success, hello world.jsp. But in Spring we use view resolver. For the success, we'll go to the view. Success is something which is returned from the here. You're returning a string back. There we return model and view. In Spring Framework, we written model and view, and to the view will be given to the view resolver. Here you just pass a string, and for the corresponding string you will specify what JSP it should call directly. And other thing is, you got your form, right? In the form, in the HTML form, you won't be using command name. In the HTML form, you won't be using a command name. Instead of that, what we do is, we do this. The form extends action form. Form extends action form. Since this form extends action form, automatic binding happens. Whereas there, in the HTML form, only we write like this. Object will be mapped. It takes Spring application. File menu, switch workspace, and it's the one. Let's Spring MVC. Here we go, going on this. Let's Spring form and JSP user form. You have a Java object binded right here. The command name, as I have commands model and view user form, you're passing an object. But whereas in the Struts framework, you don't need to do that, because in Struts framework, that extends an action form. It extends an action form, and in the XML file, you specify that it is going to use a form. Hello world is a URL. Instead of controller, you have an action. Now in the XML only you specify what object it needs to be used. Hello world form. Hello world form is the object name of type hello world form. So it looks like a repeated thing, because that's the reason we do. Actually, Struts is something which is outdated. People no longer prefer to use it unless and until it's existing projects which are going for maintenance or enhancement, or you're moving from Struts to Spring. Yeah. But still, you can just give a try. If you don't get it, just write it to me. I can take it offline. I can help you with that. Alright guys, if no questions, I'll share this study material for the web services and sample examples which I did. And I think Shiva has not responded. Did Shiva responded regarding the video recording?
Yes, Arun. Yeah, he sent it till date. Yeah.
Okay, fine then. Okay, that's great then. And the 38 recording and today's recording, I will upload it and I'll share it. Okay. I did upload it to 38, day 38, and today's recording I'll upload it and I'll share it soon.
Okay.
Alright guys, okay, so you can keep drop me an email if you have any questions, alright, and I try to be prompt and I'll try to respond it as quickly as possible if you have any questions. Right? Alright, thanks everyone, catch you, and thanks for your patience. The last month was completely horrible, because the sessions were not regular and there was a lot of gaps, but still you had a patience, and thanks for your patience and thanks for your time.